Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one is titled, Half the Bill, Half the Design. This happened a number of years ago. I worked at a small architecture firm as a designer. We specialized in high-end homes for incredibly wealthy people. The kind of wealth where they know that they can easily screw you over without consequences, just because they can. We were working on this one project where it was a custom-designed home. Previous house on site had been demolished based on securing a permit with some very preliminary design drawings for the new place, nothing you could use to build. This client stopped paying his bills. We were assured we were getting paid, promised the sun and the moon, and were told to keep working and finish the set. Architectural drawing set gets finished, but not issued due to the above outstanding build hours. So the client calls in a huff, spitting mad, Friday of an upcoming long weekend, demanding the drawings. He is informed that we can't release the drawings with the architect's stamp on them until we're paid. He's furious, says we're only getting half what he already paid for, and threatens to sue us for every reason in the book. Architect says, sure, we can do half, and hangs up. So we cut off half of every drawing using big white boxes. So the left half of the finished drawing on every sheet is complete, however the right half of the sheet is completely white. This of course also blocks off the title block where a lot of the architectural data and the stamp should be. We issue the flattened PDF and go home for the weekend, taking a half day. Wouldn't you know it, this client had done a private sale of the property based on our renderings and initial design concepts and promised a complete set of architectural drawings to the buyer. The house was supposed to close that Friday. We were shielded by our boss from the blowback, so I don't actually know what all happened. But yay, pay your architect. Update, for everyone speculating as to the client. This was an independently wealthy individual who is not very well known. The tactics used by famous people definitely inspire the less famous people in their income bracket. Next one is titled, I Can't Cut Down a Tree? Okay, no problem. My town had some pretty strict bylaws about cutting down trees within town limits. It's because we're part of a green belt or something, meaning we have to maintain a certain amount of green space on our properties. So, for example, you can't just pave over your entire front lawn for extra parking spaces, and any existing trees on the property must be left alone unless removal is absolutely necessary for construction purposes or safety concerns. Normally this isn't an issue because we're a fairly rural town, the lots are pretty big and have all the tree cover, gives you a lot more privacy. Where this became a problem was in 2016 when a massive ice storm hit that knocked out power for 3 or 4 days. It also severely damaged a large tree on the front lawn of a 25-acre lot just on the edge of town. The man who owned the lot was a retired farmer, about 80 years old, who was a well-known figure in the community. He had built the house pretty far back off the road on his property and right next to a massive tree, the same one that was now damaged by the ice storm. Spring came and the tree died and looked like it was now in danger of falling on the house. He had a local tree service come out to inspect it, and they confirmed that if something wasn't done that the dead tree could fall down, possibly towards the house, since there was a large split forming in the trunk as a result of the ice storm damage. The tree service couldn't do anything without the man getting permission from the town first, since the tree would need to come down. Trimming would have been fine, but not cutting it down. To make it more infuriating, a neighbor literally next door was outside the town limits and therefore was free to clean up the storm damage however he saw fit. The man went and applied for a permit to have the tree service come out and cut down the tree, and provided them with the quote from the tree service stating that it was a hazard. For whatever reason, the permit was denied by the town with no real reason given. With a nasty thunderstorm in the forecast, which he feared might send the tree crashing down on his house, and the town not giving him permission to do anything about it, he decided to take matters into his own hands and got a hold of a copy of the town's bylaws regarding this situation to see if there was a loophole somewhere, and oh boy was there a loophole. The town had made a pretty serious mistake in writing their bylaws. Have you ever noticed how laws are always written in a really strange, overcomplicated way? Well, this is done on purpose to try and minimize any creative misinterpretations of the law. Our town, however, had written some of its bylaws in more or less plain English saying that it was illegal to cut down trees without approval from the town. Note the word cut in that sentence, this is important. After a quick phone call to his attorney, this man somehow got a hold of a Caterpillar D7R, which is a big ducking bulldozer for those of you who don't know, probably borrowed it from the local gravel pit or something since he had that kind of pull in town. Anyways, the next day when the bylaw officer, knowing full well that his permit had been denied, caught him cutting up the already fallen tree, he stopped to investigate. The man calmly explained that he had been using the bulldozer, which was still sitting on the front lawn, to tear up a section of dead grass so he could reseed it when he had accidentally bumped into the tree with the blade, causing it to fall over away from the house in the opposite direction from where it had been leaning. Obviously the town saw right through the cover story and knew full well that he had knocked the tree over with the bulldozer on purpose and slapped him with a fine for it. He took it to court and won, as the town's bylaw stated that cutting down trees without a permit was illegal, but it said nothing about pushing them over with heavy earth-moving equipment. The bylaw was changed and has since been repealed entirely, and you're pretty much allowed to do whatever you want with your property as long as it maintains the green space requirements. Next one is titled, "Was in a car accident and was asked for a doctor's note." A little background story first. So this happened a few years ago while I was working as an assistant produce manager for a local grocery chain. I was young and dumb and was still phased by lack of sleep, so my friend and I decided to hang out at a bar. Less than 8 hours before my shift was scheduled to begin. Now, while we were at a bar, we each only had one drink in 2 hours and only spent the time at the establishment because you needed to have a drink to play pool. $6 each for unlimited games isn't bad. Around midnight we left and decided to take the scenic backwoods road home. Unfortunately for us, we got more than the lovely scenery. We ended up losing control and rolling completely over because something ran out in front of us. Luckily I didn't have any fractures or breaks, but my arm did get covered in glass and was bloodied up pretty good. Took us about an hour of sobriety tests, which we both passed, waiting for the police wrecker to tow the vehicle and transportation to the local police station so that we can be picked up. Also another hour until we could find someone awake to take us home. By the time I was back in the comfort of my own house, it was 2 hours before I would have to leave. I was the only one scheduled with the ability to do the produce order, literally no one else knew how to do it, and if it wasn't in by 9 AM, nothing was coming for the next day. And because of an inflated sense of loyalty I still held for my job at the time, I decided that I would show up. Still pumped full of adrenaline, I showered and went to work. As soon as I punched in was when I started to come down from my adrenaline high. I was sore and tired. At 8 AM I called my boss and told him the order was done and I would be leaving. As soon as all the managerial duties were done and any worker could handle the department, I told the store manager I was going to urgent care. They took me pretty quickly and I was home with several prescriptions by 10. The next day I was still in rough shape, but I wouldn't be running the department. The produce manager would be on with me, and because the way we worked, he would break down the shipment and load a bunch of carts that I would fill the tables with. I thought I'd be okay for the day. My boss was notorious for working whatever hours he felt like, but I never let it bother me too much until this day. When I arrived at work, my boss was gone and half of the day's delivery was already put away. He decided in his infinite wisdom to just work overnight and have me handle the rest. For the first few hours I struggled to get anything done. The physical portion of my job took more of a toll on my back than I expected, and at 9 AM when the store manager showed up I went to him and complained. I explained about the car accident that he already knew about and asked if I could have some help. Someone to lift the heavier boxes onto a cart and I'd be able to take it from there. His response? You need a doctor's note listing these restrictions. Cue malicious compliance. I called the urgent care location I went to the previous day and spoke to the same health care professional. After explaining what was happening, I requested a doctor's note limiting the amount of weight I would be expected to lift for a few days. Needless to say, she was shocked. You shouldn't be at work at all right now. I'll give you a doctor's note until your prescriptions end, but you need to take the next few days off. I told her I had 2 days off in a row coming up, and she wrote me a doctor's note saying I couldn't work until afterwards. She emailed me the note and I gave it to the boss, now off of work for the next 5 days. Next one is titled, "His high employee turnover stopped being a problem after I quit. You're welcome, boss." This happened in about 2013. I had been offered a job as an assistant at a small fashion e-commerce. I was so excited. There were red flags from the beginning. The existing assistant sat next to me was a little hesitant when I asked if the company was good to work for, and she told me that a lot of employees had come and gone for various undisclosed reasons, but I was too naive and enthusiastic to really pay attention. I came to find out that our boss, the business co-owner, along with his wife, was not quite the easygoing, fun boss he painted himself to be. He constantly reminded us how lucky we were to be working there, how we could easily be stacking shelves in a supermarket for the same wage. My fellow assistant truly did far too much for the company given her title, and my boss also constantly compared my work ethic to hers, even though I was working through my legal breaks and lunches along with her, never knowing what my finishing time would be, etc. During a period of a couple of months, I witnessed at least 3 other employees quit or be fired. One was let go because she fell ill, one quit on the spot after seeing that we were selling on broken products, one simply wouldn't put up with the unreasonable scheduling. It was coming up to Christmas and the business was incredibly busy with orders. In addition to giving up my breaks, lunches and set finishing times, the boss decided that we would all start coming into the office an hour earlier from tomorrow. Not a request. I had taken this on as a part-time job, so I was already struggling to cope and had confided in him about my mental health problems. Now, he took my concerns and laughed in my face. Asked if I just didn't want to get up early. Said that he could easily replace me anyway, that he was thinking about firing me, and that he would enjoy seeing me stacking shelves when he next went to the supermarket. That was the final straw for me. I called his bluff. At the end of the workday, I went to his office and quit, surely before he could gloatingly fire me in front of everyone. Now, it must have been a big inconvenience for him to lose an employee 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, but oh well, he could just hire someone else, right? Not quite so easily. Now that I wasn't working, I needed to claim job seekers allowance, UK unemployment benefits, and they wouldn't award it if I had just quit a job on a whim. So I typed up a long, detailed list of everything that was going on in that office, the law breaking, the bullying, and handed it to my job center advisor. She was not happy, and I was informed that the company would no longer be allowed to advertise job openings with them. This was where they were getting all their hires from. Additional nail in the coffin, the boss and his wife had just bought new, bigger premises to cope with the increased demand for their products. Demand that now couldn't be met because they couldn't hire and keep enough people to pack the orders. A few years after all this, I looked up the company out of curiosity. It was dissolved in 2016. Of course, I do not believe, nor want to believe, that I brought down this e-commerce all by myself, but it does make me happy that by calling my boss bluff, I prevented at least some prospective employees from an awful experience. Next one is titled, "Drugs Are Bad. Be a Good Parent." A number of years ago I got divorced and we shared custody of our child and had a court-appointed facilitator to agree to a parenting plan. A while later my ex-wife got remarried to a real piece crap. Whenever my child was at my house, they would tell them that mum and husband are always fighting and arguing. Unfortunately, I didn't take it too seriously initially, until one day I got a phone call that her mother was in hospital with a broken rib in Istanbul. They were on honeymoon, ironically. After that I insisted that my daughter live with me permanently. My ex-wife following this accused our child of lying and manipulation, and demanded that we see our facilitator as per our agreement. The facilitator had a large upfront split payment that was necessary, which ex-wife immediately refused to pay. I called her bluff and paid my portion, forcing her hand. Myself, ex-wife and child all had individual consultations with the facilitator, who finally agreed that my daughter should stay with me permanently. Subsequently, my ex-wife and her partner's relationship got more toxic, and it was discovered that she had stolen around $1 million from her company to fuel their serious cocaine habit and fancy lifestyle, cars, clothes, travel, food, over the last couple years. She ended up fleeing the country to go to Thailand. Her bank accounts were frozen and she had to fly home, where she was arrested on arrival. She served a few years and recently got released on early parole. Next one is titled, Told I Shouldn't Hold Door Open, So I Let It Slam Shut, It Was Broken. The mechanism for convenience store door was broken, very heavy, and would snap shut quickly. I noticed this my previous visit and held the door open for a very nice person whom graciously thanked me for my effort. Fast forward 2 days and I needed more stuff. I found the door in worse condition and noticed a person approaching. Finding difficulty myself in opening and releasing door easily, and I'm a big guy, I elected to wait in order to hold the door for this person, thinking I would explain the danger, that while door opened with difficulty, it would snap back to close quickly. This person didn't wait for me to speak and immediately began calling me for being a pig, and asked why I thought I needed to hold the door open. As I began to explain, I was cut off, being advised that my assistance was not needed. Enter malicious compliance. I released the door so that it snapped with a surprising quickness, since the severity of problem had worsened from neglect. The look on this person's face was priceless as I watched realization of the true reason for me holding the door open run across her face. I then removed to a distance away to enjoying this person's obvious difficulty in opening the heavy door, which took several attempts with lunging motions to even begin to budge. It was a comical sight and observed by many witnesses, in front of whom she tried to embarrass me, causing a line to form since no one at that point wished to offer assistance. Next one is titled, My Boss Cut Me Off and Ended Up Looking at Furry Porn. Early in my career I was working on a government project and assigned to validate contact information for people in the area, phone numbers, emails, addresses, stuff like that. I'm still shocked people used such ridiculous emails on government forms. Emails similar to BigTittyMaster69@gmail or XXXSmokebluns420XXX@hotmail were very common. Neither example are actual emails I dealt with, just reminiscent of them. One day I went to my whole boss to ask about one email. All I got out was, I'm having an issue confirming, and he cut me off saying just send it to him and he'll do it himself. What he didn't let me get out was that the email was admin at very clearly a porn site, and we had constant internet monitoring, so I couldn't exactly verify it. Also, I really didn't want to. It literally had furry and SM in the site name. So, doing as I was told, I sent him the email. Thanks to our shitty walls, my co-workers and I were treated to a loud "oh my god" and the ensuing phone calls from IT and HR asking him to explain himself later that day. His eventual response just said verified. Next one is titled, Taking Advantage of a Poorly Worded Dress Code. So this story takes place a few years back. I needed a small job just to keep myself busy, earn some easy cash whilst I was sorting out my move to self-employment. So I started working phones in a call center for a small energy company. Just for background, I'd previously been a senior manager in a large energy company. People may think this is weird, but I actually enjoy customer relations style jobs. Went through training fine, wore jeans and a tee most days, but decided to just check my dress code before going onto the main floor. It was a sentence long of dress code is casual, smart. Now I assumed that they actually meant smart casual rather than how it was written, which would mean casual or smart, so showed up appropriately with nice chinos or smart jeans, plain tees or polo shirts and just plain footwear. This was fine for weeks until a new manager started and decided to bring me to task in front of the whole office about my dress code. Instead of pointing out that the policy is poorly worded, I asked him what he wanted me to change. The response was black footwear. Now black footwear was most likely to be taken as dress shoes, but I decided to instead change to all black Vans high tops. Everything was black, even the logo. Fast forward a few weeks and now several other staff are wearing black trainers, and so again I get called out in front of the whole office for not adhering to code. Again I asked what I needed to change. You need to wear a shirt. Again, he meant dress shirt and not the garish Hawaiian shirts I brought. Like seriously, I brought the worst ones I could find and then proceeded to wear them in the office every day. Eventually I pointed out that the policy was poorly written and actually helped HR write a new one, after which I actually left, but I made sure I wore those shirts and a smug grin anytime I'd see that manager until that happened. Next one is titled, Got 2 days off of work by following orders. I was a brand new private straight out of school. Landed in Fort Bliss where you get all sorts of briefs. One brief in particular was ASIST, where they teach suicide awareness, I guess. Anyways, you get a certificate after completing it, which I did. About a month later, my supervisor calls me into the office to explain that he had to give up one soldier to go through ASIST, and I was the lucky one chosen to go. I explained respectfully that I just took the course, and could show him my certificate to prove it. He said he didn't care, just to make sure I show up to class on time. So I did. I showed up to class and presented my certificate to the instructor. He said I didn't need to be there, so I left and went back to the barracks where I hid for 2 days. Course was 2 days. Last one is titled, Then Take It. I work at a bar in California. In California you can't take a drink outside of the bar, or the bar can get fined, so we really try to not let people leave with drinks. We have a patio with emergency exits that are alarmed. A few nights ago I was cleaning up the patio and some drunken jackass with his girlfriend decided to take his drink to his car, and he left through the alarmed exit. I ran after him and told him he couldn't have the drink outside. He smarted off and said, Then take it, and then started drinking it in front of me. While he had the drink in his hand, I snatched the cup. I stayed just long enough to see that he was shocked. He did the surprised Pikachu face and the straw fell out of his mouth. I walked back in the gate and shut it behind me so he couldn't come back in. He said to take it, so I did. Thanks for listening.